Today we're back to another ranking video, and since you guys seem to enjoy these kind of lists, I thought I'll make another. And besides, I love this franchise as much as you guys. And these lists also shed light on the many facets of multi-billion-dollar franchise like Assassin's Creed inherits in order to make their appeal enormous. Some people play these games for only one of the many reasons, like the visuals, combat, story, or the ladies. But the map is something that low-key might be the most lucrative thing about the series. I'd like to point out that the visuals are separate from the map.
How so?
Well, the map is a construct of three primary details. 1. Noteworthy locations. The number of places a map has that are worth visiting, that capture a player's imagination and compels them to explore is paramount. Without these, it's just land and water with no real excitement. 2. Best division of activities. We're not in an era where touring the entire map takes hours, because now it takes weeks. With maps getting bigger with every game, it's more important than ever to segregate activities correctly. So each location has corresponding missions, which would then make you want to actually go to places that might not have a main mission in them. And number 3, size to activity ratio. If there's a 500 square kilometer map with 100 things to do, it's a flop, like Just Cause 3. And if it's a 2 square kilometer map with like 5.68536 million tasks, that's just overkill and makes the place feel claustrophobic. So the right ratio is of utmost importance. Whereas the visuals are more about texture quality, reflections, color palette, and Now that I've established what it is that I'm talking about, let's get to the list itself. Number 12, Assassin's Creed 1. Look, you can tell me that the game has the best setting, perfect protagonist, amazing story, and even great visuals, and I'd probably agree with you. But the map is the one thing that nobody could convince me is even decent. It is the worst. Empty, dead, lackluster. I can't put into words how little attention went into making this map worth exploring. They've even provided no incentive whatsoever for you to be interested in any part of the land. The missions might pique your interest, but it's never happened to me that I go to a certain location for the view, intrigue, or even some activity. It's careless on the creator's part, and it more than deserves the last spot in this list. Next up is number 11, Assassin's Creed Revelations. From here on out, it's not overwhelming negatives, but certain aspects instead that determine the spots. Revelations was a great game, no two ways about it, and I did in fact rush to pick up the game back in the day. But what I did notice was that it had more or less the same things as Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood, and the second most disappointing thing would definitely be how cluttered, uninspired, and small the map was. Why in the world would I want to go to Topkapi Palace or the Hagia Sophia? Because they look pretty good, but what's there to do? I've pointed out in my Assassin's Creed Revelations what was awful video, how there's a criminal lack or repetitiveness of activities in the game. Unfortunately, the map suffers from the same plague. Not the worst by a long shot, but surely one of the more disappointing ones in the series. On the 10th spot, we see Assassin's Creed Rogue. If you don't consider most chunks of land in the North Atlantic of Rogue, which are practically inaccessible, and only take into account the splendid New York, then the game is pretty good. But unfortunately, about 70% of the map is just filled with dead space. What a shame that they didn't make a map, if not on par with, then at least something close to the caliber of Black Flag. You can go to caves, outposts, and plantations that are on islands, but even said islands are only 20 to 50% accessible, so more dead space. But as I said, the New York we saw was great. So a silver lining in the gloomy clouds, also known as the North Atlantic or Rogue. Next, number 9, Brotherhood. This might shock a lot of people, but Brotherhood is one of my least favorite maps of the series. Here's why. Not only is the map very small, but it's totally overloaded with too many missions and locations inside area. The only part of the map I felt was well spaced and constructed was Monteriggioni, which in addition to having a nice compact city within the fort, also has a beautiful little countryside. Even Rome had one, but it was just far too small to make an impact, and Monteriggioni was locked out after the first appearance, so it doesn't count. The city of Rome, as magnificent as it was, needed to be twice as big for the amount of tasks within the game. But the saving grace was surely terrific locations like Castel San Angelo, the Pantheon, and everyone's favorite, the Colosseum.
What?
Well, I might have assumed that one. On the 8th spot, we see Syndicate. Before you hang me up with the grapnel, let me say it once again. It's not about the visuals, because in that department, Syndicate was solid. Even the layout of the map and the area to activity ratio was great, but it has a serious lack of noteworthy locations. Other than Big Ben and the Buckingham Palace, there's little to remember, but it is this high on the list because of how they've panned out the 19th century London. Magnificent wide streets, Enormous factories, gang hideouts, and the train, which was beautiful, are the highlights that push it to a better position. Next up, number 7, Assassin's Creed 3. My spiritual favorite game of the series lands in the 7th spot, unfortunately. The Kenway era had a completely different approach to the map department. Instead of heavy emphasis on jaw-dropping locations, we see priority given to better layouts, wider streets, and the natural habitats, which is all great in its own way, and I gotta say, Snowy Frontier is still one of my all-time favorites in terms of visuals and realism. Plus, it compels you to explore the place as there are secret caves, homestead missions, massive wild animals to kill, and a ton of beautiful scenery. And the activities are divided in a uniform manner. But what was totally missing was any significant locations. It's ironic how a game with the most accurate historical account also had the least number of locations related to said history. Moving on, we go to number 6, Black Flag, a massive 200 plus square kilometer map which is full of bounty, adventure, and opportunities. Black Flag's Caribbean will always be etched in my memory for two main reasons: the openness and the fluidity of the naval system, which enhanced the entire layout of the ocean. There's a ton of secret locations, treasures, plantations, and underwater fortunes to plunder. There's also a myriad of beautiful cities that are vibrant, open, and well laid out, and the natural habitat is on par with the best of the generation. But there's one major flaw. There are no, and I mean absolutely no, special noteworthy locations, just like in Assassin's Creed 3. So as a whole, it's not unimpressive, it's just that there are more impressive ones. Next up, number 5, Assassin's Creed 2. 13 years old and still cracking the top spots in lists. Despite being a predecessor to both Brotherhood and Revelations, Assassin's Creed 2 is far superior in many aspects, and the map is one of them. You can argue that they have literally copied the layouts of Roman Constantinople down to the T, which make them authentic. Now, even if that was true, I have pointed out how one had too much and another had too little to do. But the sweet spot for sprinkling the right amount of activities and good locations was hit in Assassin's Creed 2. Beautiful and unforgettable locations like the Il Duomo in Florence and the Doge's Palace in Venice, in addition to big wide streets, beautiful open spaces, and the ever so stunning Grand Canal, make the world as balanced as ever. Then why isn't it on the first spot? Well, the only reason is that the maps we see ahead are just better. Next up, number 4, Assassin's Creed Unity. You guys have really begun to infect me with the Unity bug, because with each list I make, I'm beginning to see what the appeal is of this, I'm shocked I'm saying it, but underrated game. Yeah, okay. But as far as maps go, few could ever compete with Unity. Imagine Brotherhood's map with twice as much size, and Assassin's Creed 2 levels of detail and flawless activity division. It's so vibrant and well placed, with hordes of terrific locations, and a map that ever so compels you to go around snooping. I don't know how it got to this point, but this is what an almost fully realized map looks like. Why did I say almost? Because there's not as much side activity as I would have liked to see in Unity, but I can assure you that it doesn't take away from the excellence. And now we arrive to the top 3. And on the third spot, we see Assassin's Creed Valhalla. From here on out, numbers game begin to be technical excellence, because when you have a 140 plus square kilometer map in contrast to the baby maps, which were barely 5 square kilometers, and with today's technology, you get an outcome that's undeniably remarkable. Hundreds of different locations, a multitude of things to do in them, and add to that the ever-evolving combat and stealth systems, and we get a concoction that will beat anything which isn't as massive. Apparently, size does matter. If you've ever been to Ravensthorpe, Essex, or Hamptonshire, you know how beautiful and rich with activity they are. And these are only 3 of many such wonderful locations. Sometimes it may seem like I'm hating on Valhalla, but in some aspects, it definitely deserves praise, the map being one of them. Next, number 2, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I had Odyssey in the first spot originally, but when I took a deeper look, I realized that many aspects of this game are copied from its predecessor, and not as brilliantly. So it's only fair that I give originality and excellence some praise. But Odyssey is a marvel in its own right. The Greece we witness is truly baffling. I still get awestruck every time I see it. Location after location, monument after monument, the land of the gods is overflown with not just beauty and sculptural brilliance, but also a vast array of activities. And the massive 230 plus square kilometer map surely helped. No part of this land feels dead or unexciting. Every place is packed with stacks of secrets, hidden treasures, and enemies to kill. Once again, I might hate on the RPG era at times, but boy are some aspects incredible. And now number 1, Assassin's Creed Origins. This game is an anomaly. On one hand, I hate the fact that it kicked off the RPG era and brought about elements from the fantasy genre. But on the other hand, it's a technical masterpiece that might just be the finest Assassin's Creed outing to date. It's certainly possible. as the world of Origins is one that's packed with mystery, beauty, and most of all, activities that don't seem overwhelming. This is another reason why Odyssey is second. Too much stuff to do, which in turn makes you want to give up. But the way Origins is constructed, I cannot stress how impressive it is. Yes, it has dead spaces. Yes, it has hundreds of locations, and ironically enough, these are what I said make a subpar map. But the authentic field places like the White Desert and Katara Depression have makes this rather small 80 square kilometer map stand out as the best. You might say it's just the visuals, but I'd like to argue that the dead spaces they're left out might just be the reason for a heightened sense of realism. Also, there's more than enough Egyptian monuments to keep you wandering for days. It is perfection, without a doubt, and unequivocally the best map of Assassin's Creed. So with that, we reach the end of this list, guys. As always, I'd love to know everything you thought about this video. Did you like it? Do we disagree? Are your hidden blades coming out? Tell me everything. Also, don't forget to tell me which is your favorite map in Assassin's Creed. So that's it for today. Stay safe, stay strong, and stay tuned. It's your boy VZX signing out.